The Galaxy Council chamber was like a palace made of steel and light. Its high ceiling shone with stars projected from hidden machines, and its floor trembled with the sound of alien voices. Leaders of many powerful races sat around a massive round table. They wore heavy robes, battle crowns, and golden armor. Their voices clashed like swords. Each one shouted about their fleets, armadas of burning destroyers, legions of soldiers bred for nothing but war, weapons that could crush entire moons. Every leader claimed their race was the strongest, the bravest, the most feared in the galaxy. But at the far end of the table sat someone who did not shout. A human. He wore no armor, no jewels, no bright colors. His clothes were plain and gray. His eyes, calm and watchful, studied everything yet revealed nothing. No one truly welcomed him. Some leaders didn't even look in his direction. A few, when they did, smirked with open mockery. "What use is a human in war?" hissed a scaled general, his voice like broken glass. "They sing, they write, they dream. But to fight, to lead, never," laughed a tall creature with glowing horns. The human said nothing. He did not argue, did not even frown. He folded his hands and listened, silent as a shadow. To the council, silence was weakness. To him, silence was power. The meeting stretched for hours. Plans were drawn. Star maps glowed in the air. Fleets were counted. Alliances were sworn. Every race bragged about the number of warships it would send to the coming war. They spoke of burning enemy planets, of victories that would shake the stars themselves. But when the human's turn came, no one asked him anything. His name was never called. His voice was never heard. "Humans are too small a race," one insectoid queen snapped. "Their ships are barely larger than merchant vessels. They cannot stand in a true battle." Another slammed his metallic fist on the table. "Why waste time listening to them? Let the Real warriors speak." The chamber filled with laughter and cheers. The human sat still, eyes steady, lips sealed. Not once did he try to interrupt. Yet a few noticed something odd. One bird-like admiral leaned closer to his neighbor and whispered, "Do you see his eyes? They are not afraid. Not even a little. He sits there as if all this noise means nothing to him." The other shrugged. "Or maybe he is just too foolish to fear." The human's gaze lifted for a brief second. His calm expression almost broke into a smile, but then it vanished again. When the council ended, the aliens stood proudly. They had decided on war. Every great fleet of the council would march together and show their strength. Each race promised to bring its full power. Only the humans were ignored, forgotten like dust in the corner. The chamber emptied with loud footsteps and proud voices. But the human did not leave immediately. He stayed behind, alone in the silence, looking up at the glowing star map. His eyes scanned the points of light, routes of invasion, enemy strongholds, weak spots hidden in the darkness of space. Finally, he reached into his coat and pressed a small device in his palm. No one saw it. No one heard it. Thousands of light years away, deep inside dark regions of space where no alien dared to travel, something awakened. Giant forms, cloaked in silence, stirred from their long sleep. Shadows of steel, engines of power, waiting only for one command. The human stood and walked out, footsteps light, head bowed slightly. No guards saluted him. No leaders stopped him. To them, he was invisible. But he knew. The galaxy had made a mistake. They had laughed at him, ignored him, dismissed him. They had looked at his silence and thought it was weakness. He walked through the shining halls of the alien capital, blending into the crowd, unseen, unimportant. Yet behind those calm eyes burned the patience of a predator, one who knew that prey always lowers its guard before the strike. They would learn. The fleets they worshipped as gods of war would soon be dust and ashes, and the quiet human they ignored today would be the one they would fear tomorrow. The Great War Council had ended, and news of it spread quickly across the galaxy. Every race, from the insectoid hives to the scaled reptilian warlords, celebrated their strength. They prepared their fleets with drums of war, engines roaring, soldiers cheering. To them, victory was already certain. But while they marched proudly, one thing was repeated in whispers and laughter. The humans. They sat in silence again, sneered a lizard commander, his tail lashing with amusement. Not a single word. Perhaps they were too afraid to speak. Or perhaps, a horned alien chuckled. They know they are nothing. Their ships are fragile toys. Their weapons no more than sparks. Why waste air pretending otherwise? In every gathering hall, in every mess of alien soldiers, jokes about humans passed from mouth to mouth. They mocked their silence, their small fleets, their lack of history in galactic wars. They are storytellers, not warriors. An insect queen hissed to her brood. They write songs about battles they never fought. When fire burns, they run. When war comes, they hide. The laughter grew louder. And yet, through it all, the humans said nothing. They did not answer with anger or threats. They continued to stay quiet, watching, waiting. One night, in the grand hall of the council's capital, a feast was held before the fleets departed. Long tables overflowed with alien foods and shining drinks. The leaders of every great race stood and boasted. They described how their fleets would crush the enemy, how their cannons would darken the stars, how their soldiers would bring back victory. The human representative was present, as always, sitting at the edge of the hall. He ate little, drank less, and spoke not a word. The alien generals noticed and seized the chance to humiliate him. "You sit too quietly, human," a scaled warlord barked across the table. "Do you fear your tongue will break if you speak of war?" Laughter filled the hall. Another alien, tall and winged, leaned closer. "Perhaps humans do not even have fleets. Perhaps all they have are cargo ships, painted black to look like war vessels." The crowd howled with cruel amusement. Cups slammed against tables, claws scraped plates, voices roared. Still, the human did not reply. His calm eyes met theirs for a brief moment. He did not lower his gaze, nor did he raise his voice. He only looked at them, as if studying each one, memorizing their faces. Then he returned to his meal in silence. Some aliens grew frustrated at his lack of reaction. They wanted anger. They wanted him to defend himself so they could laugh louder. But the quiet man gave them nothing, and that somehow unsettled them. Later that evening, a young alien officer approached his commander. His voice was hushed, nervous. "Why does the human never speak back, sir? If they are weak, why do they not protest at least once?" The commander grinned. "Because they know the truth. They are too small for this galaxy. Their silence is not strength. It is surrender." But deep inside, even he felt a strange unease. For silence can mean many things. Far from the feasting halls, in the dark of deep space, the truth was very different. While aliens mocked, human engineers worked in hidden stations. While alien fleets shone proudly in the light, human warships remained cloaked in shadow. While alien soldiers sang war songs, human crews trained in silence, each order precise, each movement cold. The humans heard every word of mockery. They recorded every insult, every laugh. But they did not answer with words. They were preparing their answer in another language, the language of fire and steel. Back in the council capital, the mockery continued for days. The aliens believed they had already won, that the humans were nothing but passengers in a war too large for them. But the quiet human walked among them, listening, always listening. He walked past alien soldiers boasting of victory, past generals laughing about human weakness, past rulers who barely noticed his presence. And with every step, his silence grew heavier, like a shadow none could escape. Those who dared meet his gaze for too long felt an odd chill, as though his calm eyes carried a warning their pride refused to hear. Still they laughed. Still they mocked. And still the human waited. The galaxy thought his silence was weakness. But soon they would learn it was the silence before the storm. Far from the noise of the council chambers, far from the laughter and mockery of alien rulers, the humans were moving quietly. In hidden regions of space, where maps showed only emptiness, vast stations floated like silent shadows. They did not shine brightly. They did not announce their presence. They were cloaked, hidden under layers of technology the aliens had never seen. To scanners, they looked like empty rocks or harmless gas clouds. But inside them, a storm was being built. Rows of massive warships rested in silence, like predators waiting in tall grass. Their hulls were black, designed to swallow light. Their engines purred quietly, almost like a heartbeat, steady and patient. Each ship was armed with weapons no alien had yet witnessed. Rail cannons that could pierce through planets, drones that moved faster than thought, cloaking fields that turned whole armadas invisible. Humans had been mocked for their silence, but that silence had purpose. While aliens shouted about their victories, humans prepared in shadows. While others filled the galaxy with noise, humans sharpened their blades unseen. Inside one of the command stations, crews trained endlessly. Their voices were calm, their orders sharp, their discipline unbreakable. Every man and woman knew their place. There were no wasted movements, no unnecessary speeches. Humans had learned one simple truth. In war, silence was sharper than sound. The human commander, the same quiet stranger from the council, walked among his people. Here he was not ignored. Here, every eye turned to him with respect. His silence was not mocked. It was trusted. He paused before the viewing glass of the station. Outside, the endless stars stretched forever, cold and watching. Slowly he spoke. Not loudly, but firm enough for his officers to hear. "They think we are weak," he said. "Let them believe it. They think our silence means fear. Let them laugh. But when the time comes, their laughter will be the sound of their defeat." No one cheered. No one clapped. They only nodded, their faces calm, their eyes steady. Humans did not need loud words to inspire. They lived in the weight of unspoken truth. Back in the galaxy's brighter corners, alien scouts sometimes picked up strange signals. A faint pulse, a movement in the void, a shadow that should not be there. Reports were sent back. Something was out there, but the council dismissed them. Probably asteroids, one alien leader scoffed. Or human mining ships, another laughed. They build little cargo fleets and hope they matter. The reports were buried, ignored, forgotten. Meanwhile, deep in the hidden zones, humans tested weapons that could blind whole fleets. They fired drills in perfect silence. No wasted energy, no wasted sound. Their warships were not built to impress with size or shine. They were built to end battles before they began. One engineer, covered in grease, whispered to another, "When the aliens finally see this, they will understand what silence means." The other only smiled and returned to his work. Months passed in shadows. The humans built, prepared, trained. They spoke little, but every silence was heavy with purpose. They listened to alien broadcasts mocking them. They recorded the laughter of reptilian generals, the cruel songs of insectoid queens. And then, they filed those sounds away like names written in a book of debts. Because humans did not forget. One evening, aboard a dreadnought still hidden in the dark, the human commander received a message from the council. It was full of pride, full of arrogance. The council fleets had launched against the enemy empire. Victory, they claimed, was near. The commander read it in silence. His officers waited. Finally, he said, "So it begins." The humans did not rush. They did not announce their movement. Their warships stayed in the dark, their engines whispering low. They waited like hunters, unseen, patient. Across the galaxy, the council believed the humans were irrelevant, too small to matter. They mocked the silence again and again. But in that silence, the humans had built something the galaxy had never faced. Something that would soon come out of the dark. And when it did, fleets would shatter like glass under fire. The quiet human, ignored by all, looked out the viewport. Stars glittered coldly before him. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "Let them mock us. Silence is the sharpest blade. And soon, they will feel its edge." The galaxy shook with the sound of marching fleets. From one end of the stars to the other, the council's great armadas moved forward. Their engines burned like suns. Their weapons flashed in drills. Their soldiers sang songs of victory before the war had even started. Every alien race believed this battle would be simple. The enemy empire, small, rebellious, and reckless, had dared to stand against the council. Now they would be crushed. The alien generals promised it would be quick, a war that ended in days, not months. The human fleet was not called. No one asked them to join. The council decided they were unnecessary, too weak, too small. The humans remained silent, and the aliens laughed. The battlefield was chosen near the dark edge of a star system. Dozens of planets circled the burning sun, and in the farthest orbit lay the enemy's last stronghold. The council fleets arrived first, filling the void with their glowing ships. Their vessels were vast and bright, shining with banners of every proud race. They wanted the galaxy to see them, to witness their strength. The enemy empire answered with their own fleet. Smaller, less decorated, but fierce. Their ships were black and sharp, built for war, not for display. The two sides faced each other in the silence of space. No sound, only the hum of engines and the flicker of shields. For a moment, it was calm, like the breath before a storm. Then the first shot was fired. The enemy's cannons ripped through the void, striking a reptilian warship and tearing its shields apart. The council fleets answered at once, unleashing waves of plasma, missiles, and beams of light. Space became fire. Whole squadrons clashed, ships exploding into fragments that burned like dying stars. At first, the council was confident. They laughed as the enemy lost ships, cheered as their weapons burned holes through enemy lines. "This is easy," shouted a scaled admiral. "We will finish before the humans even wake from their sleep." But then the tide shifted. The enemy fought with strange precision. Their ships moved in perfect formations, striking weak points, vanishing into darkness, then appearing behind council lines. Whole battalions of insectoid vessels were cut apart in minutes. A great winged dreadnought exploded, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The laughter of the council fleets turned to silence. Admirals shouted orders, but their formations collapsed. Soldiers screamed as their ships broke apart. Pride turned to fear. For the first time, they realized the enemy was not weak. They had underestimated them, just as they had underestimated the humans. The council fleet struggled, desperate to recover. Thousands of warships burned, filling the blackness with wreckage and flame. And still, the humans were absent. In the council capital, far from the battle, leaders demanded reports. "Where are the humans? Why do they not send aid?" they cried. But no answer came. Out on the battlefield, the alien admirals cursed the human silence. "They are cowards. They hide while we bleed," one shouted. Another growled, "They will pay for their betrayal when we return." Yet, deep inside, some began to wonder. The humans had always been quiet, but not blind. What if their silence was not cowardice? What if it was something else? As the battle raged, the enemy pushed harder. Great explosions shook the lines. The council fleets, once proud and mighty, now looked broken, scattered, almost defeated. Ships tried to retreat. Others begged for reinforcements. But space is merciless. There was no safe harbor, no rescue waiting. Then, in the middle of chaos, one alien officer looked to his scanners and froze. Something is moving out there," he whispered. His eyes widened. In the darkness, thousands of signals. The commander barked, "Reinforcements? Whose?" The officer swallowed hard. "They're not enemy. They're human." For a moment, silence filled the bridge. Every alien stared at the screen. Out in the void, far from the burning fleets, shapes emerged. Dark, massive, and silent. Ships without banners, cloaked in shadow, sliding forward like predators. The human fleet had arrived. And unlike the council's bright armadas, these ships carried no arrogance, no prideful glow. They came like ghosts, unseen until the moment they chose to appear. The council fleets, broken and desperate, now realized their mistake. They had ignored the humans. They had laughed at their silence. But the silence was over. The war was no longer theirs to fight. It had just become humanity's. The battlefield had turned into a graveyard. Wreckage of burning ships drifted across the void like broken bones of dead giants. The proud fleets of the Council, once so loud with their songs of victory, were now silent, scattered, and bleeding. Alien admirals shouted in panic. Commands overlapped, officers screamed, soldiers begged for orders that made sense. But nothing worked. The enemy moved like hunters, tearing holes in the broken fleets again and again. And then, the stars shifted. At first, it looked like shadows moving at the edge of the system. Silent, slow, almost invisible. Then the shadows grew sharper, shapes forming out of the darkness. Thousands of them. Ships larger than the enemy had ever seen, darker than the void itself. The human fleet had arrived. They did not come with fanfare. No bright banners, no songs, no roars of pride. They came without sound, without light, sliding into the battlefield like ghosts. An insectoid commander stared at his scanner in disbelief. Impossible. They were never on our charts. How can they have so many ships? A reptilian admiral's jaw tightened. They were hiding them. All this time, in silence. The council leaders who had mocked the humans now froze. For the first time they realized silence had been a mask. Behind it stood a storm. The enemy noticed too. Their attacks slowed as their ships turned to face this new arrival. But the humans gave no warning, no introduction. Inside the largest human dreadnought, the quiet commander, the same man ignored at the council, stood before his officers. His face was calm, his eyes sharp. He raised one hand, and with a single quiet order, the storm was unleashed. Release them. The human fleet moved as one. From the black dreadnoughts came swarms of smaller vessels, cloaked fighters cutting through space like blades. From the shadows emerged massive cannons, firing beams so powerful they tore entire cruisers apart in seconds. Missiles streaked forward, vanishing into enemy shields, then exploding with surgical precision. Where the alien fleets had fought loudly and clumsily, the humans struck like surgeons, cold, precise, deadly. Every shot counted. Every movement was calculated. There was no wasted energy, no wasted fire. Alien soldiers who had once mocked them now watched in awe and terror. "Look at them," whispered one insectoid officer, her claws trembling. "They don't fight like us. They fight like they already know how the battle ends." In minutes, the tide turned. Enemy ships that had crushed council fleets now fell like fragile glass. Their formations broke apart under the silent advance of the human dreadnoughts. The human commander spoke again, his voice calm over the comms. "Target their command ships. Leave the wreckage as a reminder." One by one, the enemy's leaders were erased from the battle. No dramatic explosions, no chaos. Just cold, perfect strikes that left silence where once there had been power. The council fleets, half destroyed and barely holding together, could only watch. The humans had arrived not as allies, not as saviors, but as something greater, executioners of silence. On the bridge of a damaged reptilian warship, the admiral who once mocked the humans stood frozen. He had laughed at the quiet man, dismissed him as weak. Now, through the smoke and sparks of his dying ship, he watched human warships carve apart the enemy with terrifying ease. "They were never weak," he whispered, almost to himself. "They were only waiting." The enemy tried to retreat. Some ships fled into the dark, engines burning desperately. But the humans had no mercy. Their cloaked squadrons followed, striking from behind, cutting escape routes, trapping them like prey. The battle that once looked like the council's defeat became something else entirely. A slaughter carried out by the humans. Hours later, the battlefield was quiet again. Wreckage floated everywhere. Fires burned out slowly, leaving only the silence of the dead. The human fleet did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They stood in formation, calm and silent, their dark hulls watching over the ruined battlefield like a warning carved into the stars. Inside his dreadnought, the human commander gave his final order. "Send the message. Tell the council this war is over." His officers nodded. A signal flashed across the void, reaching every surviving alien fleet. The message carried no threats, no pride, no anger. Only a few words. Next time, listen. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar of victory. The aliens who had mocked the humans now bowed their heads. They had ignored the quiet stranger once. They would never make that mistake again. For the galaxy had seen the truth. Silence was not weakness. Silence was power. And the humans had revealed it. The battle was over, but the galaxy had not yet taken its full breath. Space around the ruined system was filled with broken metal, shattered fleets, and drifting bodies of soldiers who once believed themselves invincible. The Council's proud armadas, those fleets that had once been paraded as symbols of galactic power, were gone. Burned, broken, or scattered into fragments too small to matter. The galaxy that had laughed at human silence now stared into the wreckage, realizing how costly their arrogance had been. Alien commanders sat in the dark bridges of their crippled ships. Their claws, wings, and scaled hands trembled over useless controls. They remembered their own mocking words spoken not long ago. Humans are weak. Humans are nothing. Humans do not belong at this table. Now silence wrapped around them heavier than chains. The humans did not leave immediately. Their dark warships floated through the wreckage like silent judges. They did not fire anymore. They did not chase the broken survivors. They simply hovered there, their presence alone crushing the hearts of every alien who still lived. One insectoid officer whispered to her captain, "They do not even celebrate. No victory songs, no cheers." Why? The captain closed his eyes. Because for them, this was never about glory. This was a lesson. Across the battlefield, the enemy empire that had dared to fight the Council was finished. Their ships were torn apart, their commanders dead. But in the Council fleets, the greater wound was not physical. It was pride. They had boasted of power, yet it was not their strength that won the day. It was the humans, the quiet race they had mocked, who shattered the enemy with terrifying precision. In the capital world of the Council, news spread faster than light. Screens showed silent images of human dreadnoughts drifting through fields of wreckage, their black hulls untouched, their weapons still glowing faintly from battle. To many, it felt less like rescue and more like judgment. The Council gathered again, but this time, the chamber was not loud. No shouts, no boasts, no laughter. Every leader sat in uneasy silence, waiting for the arrival of the one they had ignored, the human. When he entered, no one dared to mock him. The same man who once sat quietly at the end of the table now walked with calm steps, and every eye followed him. He wore no medals, no crown, no armor. Yet the weight of his presence was heavier than all the warlords combined. He took his seat without a word. For a long moment no one spoke. Finally, the insectoid queen who had once declared humans useless lowered her head. We misjudged you." The human's expression did not change. His eyes scanned the Council one by one, until every leader lowered their gaze. Then, with the same calm voice that had once been ignored, he said, "You believed silence meant weakness. Now you understand it means patience. Strength does not need to shout." The words were not shouted, yet they struck harder than any weapon. Back in the void, human fleets began to move. They guided damaged Council ships back to safety. They sent supplies to wounded soldiers. They gave no speeches, no promises of alliance. They simply acted with the same quiet precision that had destroyed the enemy. Alien soldiers, once proud, now looked at the humans with awe and fear. Whispers spread quickly. They fight without sound. They win without glory. They kill without mercy, but save without demand. The shattered armada of the Council became a story, a warning carved into history. For generations, races would remember this battle not as the Council's war, but as the day silence shattered fleets. And the humans did not let the memory fade. They left wreckage in the stars untouched, letting it drift as a monument to arrogance. Every time an alien captain passed through those ruins, he was forced to remember. Never underestimate the quiet ones. In the deep chambers of his dreadnought, the human commander stood alone, watching the broken fleets drift on the screen. He did not smile. He did not cheer. He only whispered to himself, "This is the cost of ignoring silence." And with that, he gave the order to his fleet. Withdraw. Leave them with the lesson. The black warships turned slowly, fading into the darkness of space as quietly as they had arrived. No trace of sound, no trail of fire, only silence remained. And in that silence, the galaxy understood. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The stars above the council worlds had never looked so quiet. Once, those skies were filled with the proud fleets of every race. Ships that shone brightly, banners stretched wide, songs of victory echoing in the void. But now silence ruled the heavens. The armadas that were supposed to be invincible had been reduced to wreckage, scattered across space like ashes after a great fire. The memory of that battle lingered in every mind. No one forgot the sight of black human dreadnoughts sliding from the shadows, tearing enemy ships apart with cold precision. No one forgot the silence that followed, the silence heavier than thunder, heavier than fear. The council gathered again, but this time their chamber was not a hall of arrogance. The voices that once shouted over each other now spoke softly, carefully, as though afraid to disturb the weight that still hung in the air. When the human entered, no one ignored him. No one mocked him. Every leader rose quietly, as if standing before judgment itself. The man who had once been invisible now carried the presence of a giant. He walked to his seat slowly, calmly, his expression the same as always, controlled, unreadable. He sat down, folded his hands, and waited. For a long while, no one dared to speak. Then, finally, a reptilian warlord broke the silence. His voice shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. "We owe you our survival," he said. "Without your fleet, the council would have been destroyed." An insectoid queen followed. "We were blind. We believed pride was power. But in your silence, you carried a storm greater than all of us combined." The human did not smile. He only looked at them, his calm eyes forcing every leader to lower their gaze. Then he spoke, his voice steady, simple, and clear. "Power does not need to be loud. Arrogance blinds. Pride weakens. You ignored us because we were quiet. You laughed because we did not boast. And yet, when the storm came, your voices fell silent while ours spoke in fire." The chamber remained still. His words did not need to be shouted, they carried their own weight. The insectoid queen bowed her head. "What do you ask of us?" For a moment, the human said nothing. Then he leaned forward slightly, his voice calm as ever. "Remember, that is all. Remember what silence can mean. Remember that respect is not a gift, it is survival." Those words struck harder than any weapon. The leaders exchanged uneasy glances. They understood. This was not a demand for tribute or land or power. It was something greater. It was a warning. The galaxy now carried a scar shaped like wreckage, shaped like silence. Generations to come would tell the story of the day humans revealed their true strength. Children would whisper the words. Soldiers would repeat them before battle. Rulers would carry them as a shadow in every decision. Never underestimate the quiet human. Out in the void, the human fleets did not vanish completely. They moved back into the shadows, cloaking themselves, unseen yet always present. To the council, this was more terrifying than if they had stayed visible. For now, no alien commander could look into the darkness of space without wondering if a human warship was already there, watching, waiting. The galaxy changed. Races that once shouted their pride now spoke with caution. Generals who once mocked others now thought twice before laughing. Silence was no longer seen as weakness, it was seen as power. And in that change, the humans remained what they had always been. Watchers, listeners, quiet hunters in the dark. The human commander returned to his people, to the hidden stations and fleets cloaked in the black of space. His officers saluted him, but he raised no speech, no toast, no cheer. He only looked at the stars and spoke softly to those who stood near. "They will remember now, not because we demanded it, not because we shouted it, but because they saw it with their own eyes. Silence speaks louder than pride." His crew nodded in silence, for they understood. Victory was not in noise. It was in patience, in precision, in shadows that strike when least expected. The lesson had been taught. The price had been paid. The galaxy would never forget. And so the story of the quiet human spread, not as a tale of weakness, not as a tale of arrogance, but as the day when silence shattered fleets, and the galaxy learned to listen.